Okay, so we're getting ready to make our coil teacups. You're going to get about a handful of clay. And the first thing you're going to want to do is break off a small piece of the clay. You're going to squeeze it in your hand, make kind of a hot dog shape, and then we're going to practice rolling out our coil using long rolls. We're going from the tip of our finger all the way to the back of our hand, tip of our finger all the way to the back of our hand, from the middle, keeping our fingers spread out. And if I go nice long rolls, I should get a round coil. I want to make it thinner, but not too thin. It should be about the size of my pinky, or since your hands are smaller, any of your fingers. So let's see. That looks pretty good. So the next thing I want to do is take my fork and I'm going to scratch. Scratch, scratch, scratch all the way down my coil. Once I've scratched my coil, I'm going to start rolling and make a giant cinnamon bun so that the scratches are attaching to the rest of the spiral. Now I've made my cinnamon bun. I'm going to smooth out one side of it. I can put it down on the table to smooth it, but I want to make sure I'm just dragging my finger across and not pressing it into the table or it will get stuck. So I keep picking it up to make sure it's not getting stuck. All right, once I've smoothed it out, on one side, I'm going to leave the other side this way, but I can gently smooth out any little bumps that I see. And now you've made your base. Okay, so the first thing you want to do before doing any other steps is make sure that you take a toothpick that are over by the sink, by the tools, and you're going to very clearly write in your first and last name, kind of pat it down a little bit to get the bumps down, and then you're going to put your homeroom below it. Okay, and if you need to recarve it, make sure you recarve it. This is so important. You have to keep checking to make sure that you don't lose your name, because once our pieces get fired in the kiln, they look a little different. It can be hard to recognize them. So you want to make sure that your piece doesn't get lost or taken by somebody else by accident. So then we'll put this aside. I rolled out another coil. And so what I want to make sure I do is take my fork and I'm going to scratch one whole side of my tile. And then I'm going to scratch right around the edge of my cup. So this is the base, right around the edge. So now I've scratched and scratched, and I'm going to attach. It's like Velcro. You always want to attach the scratchy parts to each other. I'm going to just gently push it down. I don't ever pinch. I just sort of press it down as I go. When I get to the other end, over here, I need to stop, take a break. I'm going to add it to this layer. I'm going to scratch, scratch, scratch. I'm going to keep on going and start building my second layer. So if you look at it, I'm building up 2 layers. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Scratch right to the end. When I get to the end, I'm going to smooth out that little spot. And once I've scratched and attached, I'm going to just gently push it down. I want to take my finger and I'm going to drag it along the inside. I'm going to hold the outside of my cup and just sort of hide the evidence very gently. And this is going to help make my piece waterproof so that when I go to put water in it, it doesn't leak out. It also makes our pieces stronger so that the coils don't fall apart from each other. I want to make sure I do that before I add any other layers. Okay, so now that I have a few layers using one coil technique, it's really important that I try at least one other coil technique, if not maybe one or two more. So I have prepared some small spheres that I'm going to line up along the edge. I always want to make sure I scratch the part of the shape that I'm going to attach. So I scratch and scratch, press down, and then I'm going to smooth it on the inside. On the outside you can still see it really clearly, but I've smoothed it out on the inside. That's going to help it stay. I'm going to do that. Scratch around the edge since I'm going to make a whole row of these. Press it down, hide the evidence, smooth it out. So now I've added my row of spheres. And the next shape that I made were some small cinnamon buns that are going to go on the side. I'm going to use the cinnamon bun and attach the bottom of it to make a couple of shapes to add to this row. So I'm going to scratch the bottom, and I'll gently scratch the top of my spheres, press them down together, and I'm going to very gently smooth out the evidence, always holding the outside so I don't push it right off. I never want to pinch. We never pinch because it makes it too small and doesn't make it very strong. I'm going to add one more cinnamon bun. Scratch and attach, making sure I smooth out the evidence. And then I've rolled out some other coils to show you a couple more shapes you can do. So one is a winding road. If I don't care about drinking out of my cup, I could make it kind of loose and then scratch the bottom and attach it so that there's holes. But if I want to make sure it's something I can drink out of, then I want to scratch along my coil, and I'm going to fold it in on its scratchy side. And I can make like a winding road that touches itself all the way around. Once I've done that, I'm going to press it together gently. I want to make sure that I scratch along the top of my spheres. Scratch along the bottom of my row. And I can add them down like this. Then I want to make sure that I'm pressing along the inside to hide any evidence, make sure I hide any holes so that no water sneaks out. I'm going to finish building the wall of my cup. Alright, so I've added my winding road shape. I have my swirls, I have my spheres, and my row of coils down here. So I have a little bit of space left over here to finish up my cup, and then I'm going to make a handle. So I've rolled out 3 coils that are a little bit thinner than my other coils. Made them a little thinner because I'm actually going to braid them together. So I'm going to scratch and attach the tops so that they stick together. And then it's just like braiding hair, but you want to make sure that you lay them out every time you do a braid. So I'm going to go from one side, I'm going to go from the right, gently bring it over, kind of move this one over, move this one over. I'm going to come to the left, bring the left one over the middle, adjust, bring the right one over the middle, adjust, bring the left, right, left, right, left, right. Try to keep them close together so that there's not big holes. We'll smooth it out when we're done. And then I'm going to kind of press it together if I don't want it to leak. If you don't mind, you can leave it so that there are some holes if you're making a pencil holder or something decorative. Then I'm going to come over to my cup. I'm going to scratch along the spheres where I want to attach. I'm going to scratch along the side of my braid where I want to attach. I'm going to gently press them together. And when I get to the end where there's extra, I'm actually going to pinch and pull it off. So I don't even need my whole braid. So now I've filled in that row, kind of neaten up any places where I can see crumblies. I'm going to smooth it out on the inside to hide the evidence. And then I'm going to finish my cup. So to finish my cup, especially if you want to drink out of it, you want the top row to be kind of smooth. So I'm going to gently scratch and attach all along the top. Make sure I always hold it so I'm being gentle. I'm going to scratch along this coil that I've made. And then I'm going to go along the top and very gently, never pinching, press it down. If you make a mistake with a coil and you have to re-roll it, you can probably re-roll clay once or twice, but if you re-roll it too much, it starts to dry out. So I got to the end and I'm actually going to end it right there. So now I've made my cup. I'll smooth out the inside. Smooth, smooth, smooth. And the last finishing touch, I made one last coil. And it's a little thicker this time. For the braid, they were a little thinner. For this one's gonna be a little bit thicker. We want the handle to be nice and strong. So I'm gonna decide where my handle is gonna go. Scratch on the outside of my cup, scratch on the top of my handle, and I hold it upside down, gently push it together. I'm gonna bring it down. Scratch and scratch. Sometimes people need help from a partner with this, and that's okay. You could ask somebody at your table to hold your cup for you. You want to make sure you really press it down and smooth it out along the edge, because the handle is gonna need to be strong to hold up your whole cup. Now I'm just gonna go over my cup, make sure the inside is smooth, cover up any holes, smooth out any little mistakes on the outside, and my cup is done.